and I'll get us started. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm really pleased that you're all here to talk about how we transform teen services through continuing education. I'm Linda Braun, and I'm the YALSA CE consultant as well as the project manager for this IMLS project. And I'm going to ask everyone else to introduce themselves in just a second, but I'm going to go to the next slide with the agenda. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the project and why we need you. And then most of the session is going to be for us to have a conversation. Can be totally informal, really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I have a set of questions on slides, but if we diverge and go over other places, that's awesome. That's perfectly fine, because really we're just trying to hear what you have to say about all of these things that we're trying to learn about teens and teen services and continuing education. But before that, I would love to know who's here. So I'm going to go through who I can see on the as participants. And if you have a mic, if you could, when I say, who are you, you could tell us who you are, and when I call on you, so to speak. And if you don't have a mic, if you could type it in the chat, that would be great too. So let me just get to the list of participants so I can see who's here. So I'm going to go down the list as I have it here. And Jackie, you're the first. And if you could just say who you are, where you work, what you do there, that would be awesome. So Jackie, let us know who you are.
My name is Jackie Zadoweski. I'm the director for the Nottoway County Library System, which is in South Central Virginia, a very rural area. 3 library branches, small staff, no one doing teen programming in particular.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Okay, Becky, who are you?
I'm Becky Wilson. I'm with the Missouri State Library, so I just kind of popped in to spy and hear what everybody else has to say at today's session. So I'll probably take a back seat and be more of a listener than a contributor.
But Becky, if you have something to say, feel free, particularly because being at the State Library, you've had a little bit more of a connection to this project so far. So great.
Definitely. And I was a library director in a small rural setting before I came to the State Library. So if I feel I have something to add at some point, I'll throw it out there.
Thanks, Becky. Kristen, who are you? I think you're muted, Kristen. There you go. Go ahead.
Can anybody hear me now? Okay. Awesome.
Yes.
I am Kristen. I'm the digital learning librarian at the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. And let's see, Lacey, who are you? And Lacey, you don't have you have a mic, right? Or you don't? Yes.
I have a laptop mic.
Great.
Not a headset. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Okay. The title they gave me was technology coordinator, but I'm essentially IT. I'm also pretty much project coordinator. Any ideas, projects, programs, anything that needs to be done, it gets sent to me, and then I kind of parse out where it needs to go. I'm also the assistant to the children's director or children's librarian. So anytime she needs help, I'm there to help her. And any tech stuff.
Great. You've got a lot going on. Thanks for being here today. And Sarah Ryan, who are you?
Hey, Sarah Ryan. I'm the Teen Services Specialist with Multnomah County Library in and around Portland, Oregon. 19 locations, all very different, all too small.
Okay. And Melanie, who are you?
Hi, I'm Melanie Morgan, and I'm the Library Director for the Madison County Public Libraries, which is located in Western North Carolina. So we are 30 minutes north of Asheville. We are a very rural library system. We have about a population of 21,000, but we do have 3 libraries because we have a huge land mass. So, and as far as teens, Definitely interested to hear what everyone has to say. That is our weak point in our programming.
Great. Well, that's definitely one of the reasons we're doing this, is to prod up, I can't think of the word, but help others build up their teen services. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Did I miss anybody? Before I forget, did I miss anybody? Great. All right, and feel free to keep chatting, and then as I ask questions, you know, we can use chat, you can use audio, however you feel most comfortable. Audio is great, but chat for as people are talking is good, fine too. So just a little bit about this project. So this is a 1-year IMLS funded project. It's called Transforming Teen Services through CE, or Continuing Education. And we're partnering with the Chief Officers of State Libraries Associations of State Libraries, so it's the Association of Chief Officers of State Libraries. And we started in the summer and have been working on various pieces of the project so far. And on the right, the photo is, we had a national forum in November with youth-oriented staff at state library agencies as well as others, because not every state library agency has a youth person, or the youth person wasn't available. So there were all different kinds of present representatives of state libraries there. And we had 44 states had some staffing and travel challenges. There was like snow all over the place that week. But we had this really amazing session with people. And so that's one of the activities. Can't remember what they were working on, but they were working on something. And we talked about all different kinds of things related to the needs of teens, the needs of libraries, and the new YALSA competencies. We're also having these 2 town halls today from an administrative perspective, and tomorrow from a staff perspective, and trying to gather as much information as possible about what's going on with teen services and continuing education related to teen services. But also a big part of this is that, you know, YALSA has been talking about the fact that teen services is not just the purview of teen serving staff, right? Those who might have the title as teen librarian, because throughout the library, teens tend to be, and having the skills and knowledge to work with teens successfully ends up being something that all library staff need. Now, if there's teen services librarians, they may need specific kinds of learning, but all staff could benefit from some trainings related to teen services. So we're really looking at, you know, the CE needs generally, and then also with teens. And what we're going to do is we're going to synthesize and analyze, actually it should be analyze and synthesize, I guess, to lead to a report that will come out in the early summer, late spring, if all goes well. And the report's going to have recommendations for next steps, and perhaps some ideas of what could happen next, maybe some examples. And we're already starting to pilot a few things with some of the state library agencies to think about where we could be. And then YALSA actually, just from what we learned in November, has already applied for a new IMLS grant to work with frontline staff and state library agencies to build train the trainer models related to computational thinking and coding and those kinds of things with youth. So we're moving forward, we're gathering information, we're trying to keep things moving at the same time. So that's a bit about where we are and what we're doing. Does anybody have questions in general about the project before we get to the Q questions part? Nope, we're good. All right, if you do, just chime in, ask them away. So here are, I have a few slides of questions for you. And like I said, feel free to use voice, use chat, whatever works best for you. But the first one is, what are the challenges you face? And both of them we can talk about together, but what challenges do you face in trying to support the CE needs of staff. And big challenges, like what makes it hard to provide training, to figure out what the right training is, to connect staff to training, both in general, big picture, but also when you're thinking about teen-oriented training. So what are you all thinking about that?
I think for us, just as a rural library system, is having enough staff actually to be able to have a designated like teen librarian, or we don't have professional staff, but a teen person in charge of that specifically. So for example, for us, I am the teen librarian, and I also have a Mars Hill branch manager who also helps me with teen programming. So, you know, in a rural library system, we have to wear many hats, and I think that's the biggest challenge for us.
Right. Anybody else? And Lacey is saying initiative and direction. And Lacey, when you say initiative and direction, can you expand on that?
Well, a good example is, like I said before, our team programs are extremely lacking. There's so many ideas out there, but if nobody's really willing to like grab that and expand on it and push it, then we're kind of stuck. And then where would we take it? Like any idea, what could you do with it? What program could you do? You know, how would you get it done? Preparing, planning, all that stuff. Otherwise, you're just sitting there on your hands going,
And I can speak to a large system perspective, and I bet Kristen can too. So one issue is staff transitions. So we have been fortunate enough to have a baseline teen services training that we regularly offer. We didn't offer it last year because we were updating it. And so now we have staff that are like, I feel like teen services is optional, or like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so how often to offer training and how in depth to get, I think we've had some success with using the Search Institute's developmental relationship practices as kind of a way, because it's 5 practices, just like in early childhood. So, so that has been helpful, but just how do you determine the point of need, and how do you know who needs to know what and when do they need to know it, are things that I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, I can speak to some of the things Sarah just spoke of from being from a larger system. We're developing a set of staff competencies and dividing that up through like all staff should know this, and then tiering it for each level of staff. So at some point, we're hoping to give a teen services training to every member of the staff, including like our security and cleaning staff, just so anybody that's interacting with teens has like that background knowledge of like very basic, almost like the 5 early literacy stuff about teens. So every interaction is kind of in the background as defined by that. But that we're rolling that out, so we haven't actually enacted that in practice quite yet.
Oh, and one other thing I want to say is I think it's really common for people to conflate teen services with public teen programming.
Yes.
And I think that's really different. So thinking about like, how are teens being used as volunteers? What's your teen collection like? How comfortable are teens in your spaces when they're not like actively checking out materials or whatever? Like, it's all part of it, but a lot of times I think people just think like, you know, I'm not doing a teen program, therefore I'm not doing teen services.
Right.
I would prioritize the relationship building ever before a I have a bit of a weird relationship with programs anyway, but the relationship is always the most important thing for me in the branch life and in my new job.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, I think that, and Kristen, I think that's really interesting because that's part of the whole library approach that YALSA has been trying to put forward, is this idea that, yes, programs are something we do and we know have value, but it is that relationship with teens, and all staff can have a relationship with teens, I think. But it could take some training, right? It could take training about building relationships, about having interactions. I'm really interested in, or one thing I've been really interested in based on another project YALSA has, it's called Future Ready with the Library, and it's for small, rural, and tribal libraries, is we've been talking a lot about how you talk to teens, right? So what are the conversations you have? How do you have those conversations? So do people see like some of those very basic teen interactions kinds of stuff? I know that's not great articulate speaking, but that kind of thing being useful to any staff? Like, how do you talk to teens? What are some of the things you need to know about teens? And not just adolescent development, but that relationship building.
Well, first we would need to get the teens in here. So we do have some who come in for the computers, but very few come for programs or, to check out materials.
So I'm gonna just suggest that actually and tell me if I'm totally wrong, because I'm happy to be wrong. Well, I'm not happy to be wrong, but I'm happy to be wrong. Is that if we know how to build relationships with teens, we know how to get them in the building, right? So is it a chicken and egg thing?
Probably so.
Just from us, our speaking, we had the most benefit because we make connections with the school system. So we're like a strong partnership with the schools. Mm-hmm. That's how we've been able to connect with our teens and bring them into the libraries. And we actually have, our teen summer reading program is a collaborative project with the school system. So for us, that's been successful. It's just during the school year, we haven't been able to expand that into the library. But I agree. I love the idea of creating a structured training module for library systems who have, limited staff, or even larger systems. It's still a great thing to have if you have like a module that we can go down and train our staff utilizing that.
Yeah.
I think there's some good stuff in Jennifer Velasquez's book, Real World Teen Services, when she talks about things like going to the library may be one of the first places that a teen goes independently. They may not know that there are rules, or if there are, what they are. Also, something that I always try to stress in trainings is like, if the teen is approached by an adult, pretty much by default, they're going to assume that they're in trouble. And so when you try to start building those relationships, you have to be aware that teens approached by adults in public mostly feel like threatened or like worried that they've done something wrong. And so you kind of have to overcome that before you go anywhere else.
Yeah, which goes back to having those teen relationships and being able to understand where they're coming from. Yeah. Actually, who was it? Someone just said about having a module. So this is a slight tangent from the original question. Is that something that you think would be useful to the staff you work with, are like online modules that staff could, and wouldn't have to be like an hour-long webinar or something, but like a 10-minute module where they could go in and learn something. We haven't decided what yet. Learn something, or get some ideas about something, and that would make it possible to get some CE.
I think it would definitely be beneficial, just mainly also because it's not just the teens who, feel that awkwardness in a relationship. It's also, our adult staff who is nervous about, connecting with teens in the library system. So I do think it would be beneficial.
Okay, that's good. And I'm looking at the chat. Lacey, I think that's really interesting too about learning about, who they are, understanding what teens know and don't know about the library and how we can help with that, all of that kind of thing. I'm actually going to I'm going to skip one of the slides and go here because we're sort of in this area a little bit, is what do you think are the things we need to have staff learn? So Lacey was just talking about that, and Sarah's talked a little bit about it. What are topics that you would love to see in continuing education for staff in general, and in teen services?
I would say promoting that the library is a space for teens to hang out, and they don't have to necessarily have a purpose there, which is a big adjustment for a lot of staff who find that hanging out as, and sometimes it is disruptive, but it is usually not. Like, just letting them chill out in the library is a big deal for us, and like letting it exist as another space in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anything else?
Cultural competence and equity, particularly building relationships across differences. So like, yes, like teens and adults building relationships, like there's difference right there, but then if there's also cultural difference, gender difference, economic difference, like those are other things that play into interactions that we need to talk about explicitly.
Yeah, that was one of my next questions. Is that something that other people think are seeing a need for? Okay, great, thank you, Kristen. So yeah, so there's the cultural competence, there's knowing about teens, knowing about the space. Any other, are there things that your staff are interested in learning about related to teens? Sorry, that's Harry. He has things to say on this topic. But are there things your staff is looking for?
For us, our town is getting a lot more technology advanced, and the kids are getting into it as well, but our staff is a little bit behind. So we're having to try and catch up with them so we actually understand what they're even saying. Some of the programs I've spoke with kids about, they're like, hey, I would love to have a program about this. And I'm like, what is that even? And I had to go and look it up, and I'm like, oh, well, that's something I should have known about already. It's everywhere. And that's.
I would, so if that's happens, a lot of times we just let, if the teen is dedicated enough, we'll learn the thing together with them and then let them lead the program if they're interested as well. So having team-led programs has been really helpful in that area, whereas like, who has time to learn all of that thing when you're like managing the branch and like yelling at everybody. But like doing team-led programs has been really successful in a lot of our spaces.
And actually, as you were just saying that was Lacey, right, who just said that about the teens and technology and all that. I guess one of the questions that I haven't put here, but I'm wondering about is what equals continuing education, right? So, because how do you learn that? We talked about the modules, but is that like, would periodic, when we were talking to the chief officers last week, someone said they would like to see more related to trends and research. So is that blog posts or short articles or whatever about these different things just to get people's brains started thinking about them? Does that count for you as continuing education, and would that be useful?
Yeah, it's like it actually was shocking for us to find out a lot of teens, a good example is their keyboarding class. we have teens come in that are hunting and pecking keys because they don't know how to properly use the keyboard, properly work it and be worked with. They're pretty much just given the assignment and just left to do it. If they don't finish it, too bad. And we're having to help them just do basic projects, papers, using the computer, and they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm just remembering I'm in Seattle, and the Seattle Public Library was partnering with a employment program, a youth employment program. And when they met to talk about projects, that's one of the things they learned, was that the library could be a place for the employment program to bring the youth to learn how to use a keyboard to do their resumes and cover letters and all those kinds of things. So you're also making me think that there could be some need for continuing education on figuring out what the needs of teens really are, as opposed to just deciding
What you think they need.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I would have never said, I know the keyboarding, I know a lot of people hunt and peck, but the teens thought it was awesome, and they came as a part of this other program. So it was a good way to connect with them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can honestly say, and it's a program I'm working on. As a kid, I don't know if you've ever heard of the program. It's called Mavis Beacon.
Mm-hmm.
It is a super interactive, very fun, very colorful program that teaches kids how to keyboard. And I got to keyboarding class in 8th grade. I was just flying through the programs, and the kids were hunting and pecking. I'm just 40-something words per minute, and it's just like, and I want to get that because it's super fun, it's interactive, it's not boring. And that's the problem with kids. The projects they have to do and things they have to learn, it's boring. So we have to find ways to spice it up, make it more fun, more so they're more willing to do it.
Connecting to their real lives, what they really need. Other thoughts about the topics and areas that you might cover or you'd like to see covered? Well, thank you, Sarah.
I mean, I feel like it's, it's sort of one of those perennial things. If you're really busy and you have a lot of teens and the teens have been in school all day and what they want to do is run around and yell at each other and sometimes punch each other and sometimes make out. And then there are like little kids and other patrons, and there's not enough staff, and they just want to know, like, well, when can I kick them out? Or how many warnings should I give them? Or like, I know I'm supposed to understand them, but this is really disruptive.
One thing,
Go ahead.
One thing we're looking at too, our previous children's librarian, she had this cute little thing. It's like a clacky talkie thing, and it measures the decibels. And if they get over a certain amount, it's green if they're quiet, yellow when they're starting to get loud, and if it's red, it starts sounding off. And that's whenever our children's librarian comes in and gets that scary teacher face, like makes you go. So we're gonna try and incorporate that again. But it's also fun.
So I'm hearing that behavior management, no matter whether it's the scary soundy thing, whatever the decibel thing, or other kinds of behavior management, and actually YALSA has done webinars and other things related to that, and that's definitely been, I have to say, that's one of our most frequently asked for topics, is dealing with teens in that way.
And I think that's something else where you can't separate cultural competence and equity, because again, if you have different expectations for behavior, if you have staff that like think that teens are older than they are and are reacting based on how old they think a teen is and what therefore they think they should be able to do, it's all related. I think.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it makes me wonder if some training on the differences of teens across time would be of value, because I'm 37. What being a teen for me is very different. I've been a middle school teacher too, is very different from what it's like to be a teen now. But what we're doing as adults is bringing our perspectives from when we were teens and how we behaved and how we reacted and what we expect from people based on where we came from, as opposed to where they're coming from now. I don't know if that would be of benefit or not, but maybe some understanding of the differences by generations of who people are and what they want and what they need would be helpful or not, but just an idea.
Becky, I think that's an interesting idea. I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, coming at it from a perspective of what it was like when I or you or whoever was a teen, even when you're younger, right? I know newish teen services people or newish library staff who are in their 20s who sound like me when they're talking about the behavior of teens. So it's interesting to think about. I think that's a good idea. And Kristen, the whole staff approach to behavior. So you're thinking, you know, so you have people on circulation or reference or tech services or whatever, right? Who could help with, who need to understand that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think like in a perfect world, having every adult in the library space be actively fulfilling the role as a caring adult in the lives of the youth we're interacting with every day, because they're interacting with, and I mean, I think usually teens are all over the library, so they're interacting with every staff member, and just vocalizing that level of support, because I mean, for a lot of teens, I'm interchangeable with the teacher that might be yelling at them all day, or another adult, they might be picking them out of the grocery store, and then they walk into the library and just anticipate a negative reaction with any staff member, because there is, and then, yeah.
Yeah, and Sarah, I think that's right, is that sometimes just someone who is in the library who's shelving a book, or custodial staff, or if you have security guards or whoever, well, security guards might not be easier to, but, right, so I think that's a really good point. And as we're talking about this, I'm wondering, so we're really talking about different levels might not be the right word, but CE that staff need. So we have CE that is much more global, right? So it's for general library staff who interact with teens in some way. And then there's CE that really focuses in on the work that people who are working with teens every day, because that's their job. And so a rural location, like where some of you are, would more easily or readily or whatever be able to connect to the global training, and then the people who are doing it every day would connect to. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm coming up with this idea as I'm talking. So what do you think?
I would say one other thing, and I'm sorry I'm talking a lot, but is the length of time for any given, because one thing I hear over and over from like branch managers is like, we don't have time to take a lot of training. We just need like something super quick. And so what you were saying before about like 10 minutes, I think that is a good, like, how quick can it be?
Yeah, that's the same issue for us, which is I didn't even bring it up because there's no solution for a lot of our team specialists are in schools in the morning or on committees, and then most of our libraries are just completely overwhelmed with teens after school, so there's rarely any time to plan anything ever or do any professional development for a lot of staff members. There's no easy solution to that, but the faster and more convenient, the better.
And online webinar stuff doesn't have to be live, right? So that would be hard for people, but short modules that cover a range of topics for general staff, for small libraries that don't have a teen person but want to connect with teens, to larger systems that have teen staff. So, and they could be mixed and matched, right? So if we made them available and people could say, oh, I want this one, and this one, and you could watch them over, you could, different staff would need them at different times. That's what we're sort of getting to, at least
That
in
would be really helpful, yes.
Okay, Jackie. Yeah, and we do have, and YALSA has, it's funny, whenever people say teens don't know what libraries have, I have the same thing with YALSA, because people will say things, I'm like, but we have that. And I totally get it. I mean, you shouldn't have to, you should know. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, how do we make it possible for you to know? So we have archived webinars, but for members, which is a challenge because, or you have to pay if you're not a member, it's challenging. We have these free snack break things that are 10-minute-ish videos on a topic, but I'm not sure they were the right topics as I'm talking to you right now. I'm thinking that we need to be much more intentional or purposeful or whatever about what the topics are and how they're organized and how we make them available, I think. I don't think you can say anything to that other, because I'm just thinking out loud. But yeah, so, and oh, Sarah said, real teens talking about how they want to be treated. Yep, okay.
Yeah, and we actually did some of that. That's the reason that we didn't offer our teen services training for a while. We were actually having some of our teen services staff interview teens that they work with and about things like, you know, how do you want to be told if like, you know, and we even made it like, you know, if a friend was doing something wrong in the library, how would you want them to be treated? Because, you know, you don't want it to be about them directly.
Right.
But it led to some really nice little videos that, you know, I feel like staff will connect to maybe
Right.
more than like if we just told them.
Yeah, the most powerful like thing that kind of transformed the approach I was taking with teens and like every interaction was the city of Pittsburgh did a study of the school to prison pipeline and talked to tons of teens about like the discipline they're experiencing throughout the city, and it really just like having those youth voices completely changed everything for me, which was like crazy that was the first time we had something like that in place. But it really was the best thing.
Well, and you're both making me think that that's another way to get to the cultural competence, responsiveness piece, right? Because if we make sure, if we do something like that, that we're seeing a variety of teens answering these questions, and, you know, in all different locations, all different demographics, all different locations, that will help to demonstrate I mean, it's not cultural competence for library staff in the same way, but it'll help demonstrate that we are serving all teens across different demographic groups. Okay, that's interesting. All right, I'm gonna move, this is great, thank you. I am gonna move us down a slide or two. Oh, I'm using touch screen when it's not a touch. Hold on. You keep doing that. So I'm curious, and we're curious, if you partner with anyone when you're trying to find or access CE to teen services or others related to teen services or other CE. So for example, are there organizations that you go to when you're looking for something for staff to take part in for CE? And it can be everything, you know, like some libraries have lynda.com, and that's available to the public, but also to staff. And sometimes I've seen libraries say to staff, oh, go to lynda.com and take this course. Or they partner with local organizations to bring someone in YALSA had a teen mental health webinar where we had someone from a mental health organization come in and talk. So are there different organizations or community partners you work with or would like to work with to help in the CE area for teen services?
With ours, we have been we've been doing a lot of promoting and everything, and we actually have, like, our local college is like, hey, we want to help with these programs and everything, you know, not as far as funding, but helping with planning and people, and connected to the college is also the VA with the veterans and everything. They're like, hey, we want to help too. And then we have parents starting to hear, and they're like, hey, we want to help. You know, local art places, they're like, hey, anything we can do, hey, you can use our space even, you know, to do all these programs. And we have college teachers wanting to come out and do classes with the kids here, because they have co-op classes where high school and college students are in the same room together. So college is definitely super handy because they're the next step in education. So
Lacey, actually, that makes me wonder, like, could any of those, the college people, the community people, actually do training for staff on different topics? Is that a crazy idea?
well, one person who was just a random person, she's actually now one of our board members, but she still actively helps out. She was working at the local, what do they call it? We call it the Connections area. They help with teen and adult literacy. And they do a lot of tutoring. They're willing to do classes, you know, anything that helps out with people who are eventually going to get jobs.
Right, so they could even, because I'm even thinking they could do some teen behavior kinds of sessions for staff.
Even having teens, you know, ones that are very responsible, come in often, that you know would be a good person. Have them teach a class. Who better to listen to than one of your peers?
Other partners for providing CE for staff?
We have a super local group. It's called APOST. It's the Partner for Out of School Time, and they provide frequent trainings that are free to any person working with youth in the city can attend. But that's super local and not. But it's just a group of individuals serving youth in an after-school setting.
Right.
And they give lots of restorative justice trainings and cultural competency trainings that we are not the experts to provide always.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, connecting with those local, and maybe even some of our CE, whatever comes out of this could help people connect to different organizations who could provide CE to library staff in different topics. And Becky, that's okay. That happens to me a lot too. I don't know what the story is. Not this time, thank goodness, but we'll know you haven't really ditched us if that happens. Anybody else people work with? Sarah said Search Institute, that's always really, they have great resources. And Boys and Girls Club. Yeah, and actually 4-H, if any of you are in rural locations of 4-H, they have amazing training for adults working with youth on a variety of topics, as well as training curriculum to use with youth yourself. But that's really good. So I think that's something else for us to think about, is how you do make those connections locally to different organizations. The Y also has, there's a lot of these youth development organizations that are now starting to do more of the CE kind of stuff. So the Friends of the Library do staff training, Lacey? Okay, so I'm gonna, and then we sort of already talked about this, but are there certain, oh, I'm doing that touch. So what I get for using both my iPad and this at the same time. So do you have specific staff that tend to do this? I mean, with teen services staff, but are there other staff members outside of teen services? And I know some of you are really small libraries that are most, would you as administrators be interested? And what CE might an administrator be interested in related to this kind of thing?
Aside from our program coordinator, we have a couple of people who work as what they're called subs, but fill in for programs when we have something that we need, more hands. So it's, as much as I would like everyone to be able to attend training, it seems more efficient to send just one person and have them give the information to everyone, because we just can't afford to send 2 or 3 people to, all hear the same thing.
And I want to go back to, because I just feel like just being in a rural library system, we are limited with staff. And I know you probably get tired of hearing that, but it's truly a problem for us. I would say we get to meet up and have the library closed for 4 times a year for quarterly meetings. And I think those are our opportunity where we do staff training. And so if there was a module that we could maybe concentrate on team for, say, 20 minutes, I feel like that would really start opening the doors of communication for our staff. And I think that would be the biggest step. And then, of course, we do have our children's programming team who does help with that. But I am the administrator and I do the team programming. So I would love anything.
That's great. Thank you. That's really important. So it did flip through my head at one point that, I wonder if there are times the libraries are closed where they can have this kind of training. So that's great. So you could integrate both those modules and something live when you have your quarterly sessions. That's great. All right. Other kinds of things? Staff members? I mean, one of the things we've heard a little bit about from different groups of people is that for, I don't know if it's admin specifically, but for all different levels, sort of leadership kinds of things, whether it's a teen person or an admin or whoever, just being a leader when it comes to teens and advocating for teens. And would that be anyone who might be interested? Are there certain kinds of people, sorry, that's a bad phrase, positions, people who might be interested or find that useful? Is that a big library kind of thing people are thinking? Am I on my own planet? What's happening? It's okay.
I'm just typing out another long thing, so.
Okay, that's all right. Sarah.
Yeah, the hard part, well, like I forgot who said it was, with us smaller libraries is staffing.
Yeah.
And, not having the time and everything. They're too busy trying to do their job to take the time and help out, because there's nobody can substitute for them. They're it. And that's basically the biggest challenge with that is we have some that would be interested, but they can't be pulled.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I was saying, pretty much like me, I was brought in as technically a floater because they were so short-staffed and I was so flexible that I could go anywhere I was needed. And mostly it's in projects and stuff dealing with teens. No one can spare the time.
Right.
And I'll touch base with it. I really do think one of the key elements that really hasn't been highlighted too often is really having training on how to partner with your public school systems. Because I feel like that's the biggest connection you're going to have in your community. Not only do you get to connect with the students, but you're connecting with the teachers and the administration, really finding out what students need, what the schools need. And I think that's what really develops a strong library system and a community as a whole for access, and students knowing what your library provides. So I feel like that's a key one for training.
That's really interesting too, because you just made me think of something, or this whole conversation has made me think, you know, that building those relationships with schools and teachers is so important. And one way we could do that in libraries is to actually have cross training, right? So if teachers came and taught to library staff about, I don't know what, but, you know, teen development, whatever their skill is, literacy, tech, we'd learn from them, but they'd also learn about us. And then we could go do something, I don't know what, CE oriented for teachers about whatever. And that might be an interesting way for us to learn and start to partner, as opposed to saying, oh, we have databases, right? Which, you know, useful, but that's not necessarily the way to make the partnership. And there are people who are right in your community, which could be really, in my head, that makes sense. All right, Sarah. Oh, evaluation techniques, that's really good. Consistent system-wide priorities, yep, all right. That's great, okay. Really different populations, okay. Well, the really different populations fits for smaller libraries too, so that's really good. Okay, we are winding down, and my last slide is to just have sort of an open question. Anything else you would like us to know, or you would like to know about where all this is headed? Anything related to CE and staff and teams that you think might be good for us to continue to think about?
I'll just share that I had one reaction to the new competencies from a frontline teen librarian who was just really overwhelmed. There's just so much, and they were just struggling with, how am I supposed to internalize all of this, and like, what level am I on, and so, you know, I think that they're great. I love that they're divided into those levels, but I think it's also like a whole lot for staff to try to, like, how does this relate to my day-to-day work, and what will help me like right now? And, you know, I think the blog posts have been helpful, but then that's something else to read. And so.
Yes. Yes, I totally, I don't know if others have seen the competencies, but it's a whole different approach. I know Becky's seen them, to library competencies for teen services competencies for library staff, and they are geared towards library staff in general, not just teen librarians. The title is definitely on purpose, but it's a lot, and it's, you know, maybe that's one of the things we're doing starting in March, is every month there's going to be a free webinar on one of those topics. So any ideas on how to help Sarah or anyone else on how to build skills and knowledge in those areas, we'll take them. Starting small, I don't know, it's really interesting. Anything else people want to make sure to say? Okay. So budgets, having supplies. So even CE that helps library staff think about how you can do things when you don't have money. I think a lot about analog. People always think they have to do coding with technology, but you don't. You can do analog. So just some kinds of practical things related to that. How much CE is too much? As I'm thinking about it, so if there's like regular monthly things, the modules could be mix and match, but is there like too much to offer, too little to offer? I don't know if that's answerable.
I think that, like, I don't know what is too much, but a lot of the CE gets put on one staff member to kind of delegate to everybody else, and it's not sustainable. And then you end up being like the teen person and like get totally burned out because you're the only person. So like a good means to distribute that information, maybe.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Questions, comments, suggestions? Oh, okay. 3 hour per year, or 3 hour CE per year. Oh, interesting. Okay. And that, oh, that doesn't include, so that includes everything, Sarah? So going to something virtual, all of that? Oh, Jackie, sorry.
Yes, any of that would work. I've only been here 18 months. Before that, the staff here had like an annual training day where they had someone from the state library come, I believe, and do the training, but they didn't really do the webinars or anything, or go to conferences or trainings or anything like that. But coming from Pennsylvania, I mean, support staff had to get 6 years of CE every 2 years, and directors had to get, I believe it was 8 hours a year. So I was kind of used to having that requirement, and to come here and find that, you know, it didn't apply, you know, and I didn't see any harm in putting that in there. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great. I love that it's in the job descriptions. That's everybody?
Yes.
Also? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about job descriptions and how to maybe look at those in terms of CE needs, and that's really useful. Thank you. And Lacey. Okay, yep. Coding online and offline. Yep, great. All right. Anything else? All right, well, you see that I've put up my email. You should feel free to contact me if you have questions. The project website, I will definitely be uploading this video to that website. So if you want to share it with anyone, and also I'm happy to have more ideas from anyone who wasn't here. Tomorrow is the staff one, so frontline staff are invited to attend. Anybody else is welcome to attend. Becky, you can hover then too if you want. Anyone else can hover as well. But I really appreciate you being here. So thanks very much, and hope to see you at some CE at some point.
Thank you. Bye.